Pakistani security officials say air defenses have shot down an Indian drone near a naval base in the eastern city of Lahore. Overnight, Indian and Pakistani troops exchanged gunfire in the disputed Kashmir region. India's military has released footage it says shows yesterday's airstrikes on targets in Pakistan and Pakistani-administered Kashmir. Islamabad claimed to have shot down Indian aircraft and has vowed further retaliation. Now, India's strikes were sparked by the massacre of 26 people in Indian-administered Kashmir over 2 weeks ago. Delhi accuses Pakistan of supporting terrorism in the territory, which Pakistan denies. Now, earlier, I asked DW's Delhi bureau chief, Sandra, whether India has responded to Pakistan's claims that it's downed Indian fighter jets.
As of now, there is no official response here from sources in New Delhi, but we have this morning contacted officials asking if Indian government plans a response to the claims made by Pakistan, and we were told that a response is indeed in the making but hasn't been published as of yet. So we have to work with what we have, and what we have is visuals, images emerging from Indian-administered Kashmir via news agencies, via locals, suggesting that there is debris, suggesting that this debris belongs to aircraft. And also our colleagues at CNN have spoken to a representative of French aerospace company Dassault, which is producing Rafale fighter jets operated by the Indian Air Force. And this source suggested to our colleagues that indeed one Rafale jet might have been downed. But again, let's wait and hear what India's government has to say to these claims that were made.
Tensions are running dangerously high at the moment. Can you give us a sense of what things are like on the ground?
Well, things remain very, very tense. And if we just look at yesterday after the Indian strikes deep in Pakistani territory, both in the heartland and in Pakistani-administered Kashmir, we saw an escalation of hostilities at the line of control that is effectively dividing Kashmir between India and Pakistan. Dozens killed and injured on the villages along the line of control, villages at both sides, I may add here. India has, in the meantime, released figures saying that 12 people were killed on the Indian side and more than 50 injured here. And I'm sure that there are many casualties on the Pakistani side as well. So there is still firing going on at this very moment. And also, if we look at India's response, yesterday we saw civil defense drills, mock drills, happening in the afternoon and in the early evening hours throughout the country. Duck and cover exercises were trained, evacuation exercises, blackout exercises, all in preparation of a potential Pakistani response. And the last time that we saw mock drills of this scale was in 1971, when India and Pakistan were indeed at war, Claire.
Now, in trying to de-escalate this situation, communication, of course, is going to be paramount. Are there any diplomatic back channels still open between India and Pakistan?
Well, at this stage, we really have to look at these diplomatic relations having come to a standstill. So it would have to be via mediators to de-escalate the situation, to exercise restraint. And we do see diplomatic channels being used via the US, via China, which are major players in this region. Also, Middle Eastern countries like Qatar, like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, who have good ties with both parties here. So these mediators would have to kick in now, because I'm sure that no one really wants to see a full-scale war between these two nuclear-armed powers, and a lot will depend on the response by Pakistan. And let's not forget that Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, in his television address to the nation last night, did promise revenge and did promise a reaction.
Thank you so much for that update. We've been speaking with DW's Delhi bureau chief, Sandra Petersmann. And we're joined now by Moeed Yusuf, Vice Chancellor at Beacon House National University. He joins us from Lahore. Welcome. In your experience as former National Security Advisor of Pakistan, how dangerous of a moment would you say this is?
Oh, it's dangerous. Look, in any nuclear environment, once a first shot is fired, once you're in a crisis, there's absolutely no way to guarantee where it would end up. So make no mistake, we are in a very tenuous situation. And I think the world's now got to really ask a simple question from New Delhi. Why do they want to escalate an environment where both sides have nuclear weapons? Delhi knows full well what it's doing. Just last night, I'm sure you're aware, there have been multiple drones that were launched. Pakistan has downed or claimed to down at least 12 of them. And I can confirm to you, because I sit in Lahore and speak to you from Lahore, Pakistan's second largest city of 15 million people, where Indian drones have flown. Indian drone has been brought down. A military target near Lahore has been engaged, and Pakistani army personnel are injured. We are not talking of the periphery. We are not talking of a remote forest in Pakistan. We are talking of millions and millions of people living in Pakistan's cultural heartland. So when a nuclear power
how we might see
takes off,
Pakistan respond to this, if I may just jump in there, because the risk of escalation is very much present amid both India and Pakistan. And we've had Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on television last night saying that Pakistan is ready to fight for the honor and defense of its homeland. How do you think Pakistan is going to respond to these attacks, or has it already given its response?
Well, which self-respecting nation would not want to protect its honor, right? The point is very simple. Till a day and a half ago, there was a dispersed military force. 2 weeks after a so-called terrorist attack, which it blamed on Pakistan with not a shred of evidence. The world asked India for evidence, no evidence for 2 weeks, India attacks. Pakistan responds to defend itself, brings down Indian planes, attacks other military targets. India doesn't have a good night. After that, India, as a nuclear power, must realize that this can't go any further. But what do we see last night? We again see these drone strikes across Pakistan, by the way, as I said. Pakistan's only responded by bringing down whatever drones were flying over its territory. But Pakistan has still shown strategic restraint, again and again saying, we haven't responded. We reserve the right to respond. But again, we are the maturer party here. We know that India is egging us on. One just can't figure out why a sane country would try and do that.
So do you think that will be the end of
Pakistan
things?
has not responded to India. Well, a day and a half ago, there was a conversation, should it be the end or not? But now, after what's happened last night, there's real anger in Pakistan. You know, our kids are going around on streets of Lahore and Karachi and don't know whether the drones are going to be in the air trying to target them. This is now very serious. You've never seen two nuclear powers in a situation where one nuclear country decides to attack another, continues to provoke. How long do you want strategic restraint on the Pakistani side? Also keep in mind, we are neighbors. There is no reaction time here. This is not like the Cold War. And there are no bilateral escalation control mechanisms. India knows that full well. The international community has been the most important factor that has come in and de-escalated previous India-Pakistan crises. But I really do think that the Indian government has gotten into its Hindutva supremacist mindset, which has continued to tell it that it can just run over another nuclear country and nothing will happen. I think the world really needs to wake up, because you cannot expect Pakistan to continue absorbing something like this. I have never seen Pakistani people so angry at what they are seeing as unprovoked belligerence from the neighbor.
Well, let's take a look at efforts toward de-escalation here. You've mentioned the role of international actors. Which countries do you think would be well positioned to find a diplomatic solution to this from the Pakistani perspective?
Well, history tells us it's the United States. There's no other country that can lead the pack of third countries to come in and try and convince the two countries to pull back. In the past, it's been the US and everybody else has supported the US. This time, the US has had a fairly detached posture, and that may have been one of the reasons that there's so much uncertainty and so much confusion. But I think the entire international community needs to descend on New Delhi and inform them that continuing to risk an escalation in this crisis is it's not going to take them anywhere. And I think there's a fundamental question here. I'm personally confused. Have they completely gone irrational if they are continuing to do what they're doing? When do they think Pakistan is going to respond? And why do they think Pakistan is not going to respond? This is a country, look, I've been the national security advisor sitting in these decision making fora. And Pakistan always erred on the side of restraint at the time. The last crisis, we actually gave India a face saver. We had captured an Indian pilot, downed the plane, voluntarily handed over the pilot back to India so that they could get a face saver, create whatever narrative and move on. Everybody knew the reality that Pakistan had embarrassed India on the battlefield then as well.
The role of the United States also present there in putting pressure to return that pilot. Yeah. Thank you so much for speaking with us on DW News. I'm afraid that that's all we have time for in our show today, but I'd like to thank Moeed Yusuf, Vice Chancellor at Beacon House National University and former National Security Advisor of Pakistan, for speaking with us.
Well, I'm joined now by Pant. He is Vice President of the Observer Research Foundation in Delhi. He's also Professor of International Relations at King's College London. Mr. Pant, it's good to have you with us this evening. India says that this response was not escalatory and that it was all about deterrence. What is India gaining with this response?
I think for India, for a very long time, this problem of continuing abatement of terrorism from Pakistan had been a thorn in managing a very, very complex relationship with Pakistan. And in some ways, what happened in Kashmir a few days back, where innocents were brutally attacked and murdered, innocent civilians were attacked and murdered by Pakistan-based terror groups, I think had made it imperative in some ways to establish a new line of deterrence vis-a-vis Pakistan. And that problem, I think, continues to shape Indian thinking in managing this persistent challenge from Pakistan. So clearly, I think for India, it's a question of a long-term management of a perennial problem, but also at the same time responding to that particular terror attack.
I know that cross-border exchanges have been going on for decades. Pakistan has vowed to retaliate this time. And I'm wondering, how effective have past strikes been from the Indian perspective?
I think they have been, effective in the sense of conveying to Pakistan that India will respond in some ways. And in the past, if you would recall, India had exercised considerable restraint even after Indian Parliament was attacked in 2001. After that, 2008, Mumbai city was attacked by terrorists. As the world watched. So I do think that it is in some ways important for India to deliver this message to terror groups from Pakistan and those who provide that infrastructure to those terror groups, that India will not simply absorb the costs of such attacks. And I think there is also a demand from the Indian society that Indian security establishment need to respond to that. So I think because of both these aspects, India's response in this particular case is seen as important and is seen as something that will eventually create new lines of deterrence. Of course, now the ball is in Pakistan's court insofar as how they respond.
The international community, including the United States, has urged both countries to de-escalate. Do you think external pressure will be able to make a difference here? And is the United States, in your opinion, the right mediator for this problem?
I would not call it you as the mediator. I would say United States certainly has enough leverage over Pakistan, given its extensive economic and military support that is given to Pakistan, that it can certainly force Pakistan into looking at this issue more seriously and perhaps addressing India's core concerns. But as you mentioned at the beginning, India has articulated and briefed the international community after the yesterday night's attack that the focus of India has been in targeting a particular terror infrastructure and not targeting the Pakistani military. So India feels that it has taken a non-escalatory route, But at the same time, India's officials have also been briefing the world that if Pakistan decides to attack India, then India retains the right to retaliate. So I think we are at a very dangerous inflection point, and perhaps a country like America can intervene and ensure that the escalation ladder is not climbed by Pakistan in particular in this case.
Okay, Mr. Pant, unfortunately we are out of time, but we certainly appreciate your time and your valuable insights tonight. Thank you.